So good afternoon. I'm Laura Edmonds, the CEO of the North Clackamas County Chamber of Commerce, and I'll welcome you to our annual State of the County Forum. A little bit unique this year, but I guess we're all getting used to Zoom land, right? So miss seeing everybody's faces. I miss the audience and the crowd that we normally have, but I'm just still very thankful that we can still come together and to be able to provide this very valuable program. So I want to thank Chair Tootie Smith and the commissioners Paul Savas, Martha Schrader, Sonia Fisher, and Mark Scholl for participating in today's forum. We thank you very much for being with us, and we appreciate all of the hard work that you guys are doing for our community. Collaboration with the Chamber and the county is nothing new. It's been going on for many years, but this year has been, and this year has been no exception. With the county support, starting in December, 7 chambers in the county formed the 6 branches of the Clackamas County Business Recovery Centers. And with the mission to meet the short and long-term needs of businesses impacted by COVID. In the first month of that program, with the support of the county's business and community services and economic development teams, we were able to reach out to over 6,600 businesses, directing them to grants and lending opportunities through the CARES Act funding that was granted to the county. And what we also did was we provided them with free professional consulting services through local partners, and we distributed hundreds and hundreds of PPE supplies to small businesses throughout the county. So we want to thank the commissioners and the county for the opportunity to help so many who have been struggling for the past year. Although much has been accomplished, our work together is not done yet. The Business Recovery Centers have created a survey in which we will collect data that will be used to build a strong case to obtain additional CARES Act funding and hopefully direct funding for the county. We've all written letters asking that happens this go round. Through this additional funding, when we get it, the county and the Business Recovery Centers will continue their efforts in supporting businesses who still need financial assistance and other resources to help them to recover due to the effects of COVID. A survey link has been added to the chat box, so please capture that link and respond or share it with others so we can capture the information so that we can still provide this valuable services to the business community. Now I'd like to thank today's forum event sponsors, Clackamas County, Northwest Natural Gas, Portland General Electric, Kaiser Permanente, and the Oregon City Chamber of Commerce. Thanks to the Chamber's year-round program and share circle sponsors, Willamette View, Columbia Bank, Adventist Health, Clackamas Review, Country Financial, and Amicus Data. Our vision sponsors who continue to support our advocacy efforts, Clackamas Federal Credit Union, Clackamas Regional Water Supply Commission, Metro West Ambulance, Miles Fiberglass, MP Plumbing, Northwest Natural Gas, Oak Lodge Water Services, Portland General Electric, Providence Milwaukee Hospital, Star Oil Co., Cranston Machinery, Double J Construction, and Vigor. Thank you all for your continued support of all the Chamber does. Now I'd like to have our key event sponsor, Nina Carlson, Government Affairs with Northwest Natural, say a few words.
Hi all, and thank you for joining us today. We were delighted to be able to sponsor this event, and we wanted to send our thanks to our commissioners who have guided the county over what can at least be said a very unusual and stressful year. And we thank you for your leadership. We look forward to hearing your thoughts about time going forward. And we, as one of the largest energy providers in our region, just want to ensure the Clackamas County residents that we will be here safely, reliably, and even renewably meeting your energy needs going forward. So with that, I'll turn it back to Laura, and thanks again for all attending.
And thank you, Nina, so much, and thank you, Northwest, for your continued support of the Chamber. So a bit of rules of engagement before we get started with the commissioners who will be making their opening remarks. A little bit of rules. If you have a question, please type it in the Q&A or chat room. Your questions will be read aloud to the commissioners. If your question is for a specific commissioner, please type in their name first. Use first or last name, whichever you prefer. Type in your question. But all commissioners will have the opportunity to provide input on all questions. Please know that if questions aren't supportive of a healthy conversation, I will not be asking those questions of the commissioners. So at this point in time, without further ado, I'd love to have our commissioners start making their opening remarks, starting with Chair Tootie Smith.
Well, thank you for having us. We always look forward to this event, and I'd like to say on the behalf of the Board of County Commissioners, I want to thank the Clackamas Chamber of Commerce for producing and hosting this event. We'd also like to thank all of the event sponsors as well. Without your contributions, we wouldn't have this event that allows my fellow commissioners and I to connect with our county stakeholders and the public. As many of you know, since 2014, Clackamas County has been guided by a results-based strategic plan called Performance Clackamas. The program is built around measurable outcomes by our county departments. Guiding this plan are 5 strategic priorities that commissioners chose all those years ago that were set by the Board of County Commissioners. Each priority also has key results, and this board has been working to update those. We discussed these results just yesterday, as a matter of fact. To kick off today's event, each commissioner will relay one of our strategic priorities along with the near final results that we seek for each. These will be finalized in the next several weeks. I'll start. Our first strategic priority is grow a vibrant economy. And this is the one that we're taking the time to get our results exactly right. So we don't have the exact language yet. Maybe some of you can help us. But one of our draft results is to ensure our county businesses are operating in a supportive environment, that we are supporting businesses as much as possible and putting them in positions to succeed. Another draft goal is currently centered on increasing the percentage of solid wages in the county. But again, we're wordsmithing these to get them exactly right. My fellow commissioners and I believe that supporting our local economy is absolutely crucial. That's why we have a county division dedicated to economic development, which helps businesses and industries throughout Clackamas County. With that in mind, I'll turn it over to Vice Chair Paul Salas, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Chair Smith. Our other strategic priority is building a strong infrastructure. And as many of you probably know, the Sunrise Gateway or the Sunrise Corridor has been one of our priorities for a long time. It contains, frankly, the key building blocks to growing our economy to meet our population and housing needs. The land, the transportation, the multimodal aspects are all key elements of really growing our economy and keeping the housing, trying to keep up with the housing needs in the region. By 2024, we want to have that next phase improvements kind of underway and identifying some regional funding and for that project. And by 2026, our hope is to have 100% of our county residents and businesses where served have access to safe and affordable infrastructure. And I want to add that in the advent of COVID, that broadband has really risen to the top as far as a need, both in the educational aspects and the business aspects. And here today, we are all connected to the internet via Zoom. It has been exploded the needs and exposed some of our vulnerabilities in our areas where we're lacking service. So I fortunately have now taken as a liaison the role in broadband for the first time in 10 years. And I really hope to kind of move that as one of the key initiatives for the county. And with that, I will look forward to discussion and hand it over to my other colleague, Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas. Yeah, it was quite a gift when I came on the county commission to have had this Performance Clackamas. Don't know if you can see it. There it is. This is our last year, and Chair Smith was along with, I believe, Commissioner Schrader and Paul Savas were all on the commission that designed that. Is that correct, guys? To nod if a yes. It's a great framework of which we really can measure what the county needs to do. The area that I'm going to talk briefly about is ensuring safe and healthy, secure communities. So one of the great things about Performance Clackamas is that we get to make goals and then meet them. And so when we met for our last retreat, we recognized that our goals of identifying units that are affordable for our residents was in our last plan. We've met those goals, they're underway. And also the issue of chronic homelessness, being able to really meet those goals are well underway with the homeless services measure that was passed last May, which we are well into developing that local implementation plan. So this year, what we're doing is we are broadening our housing goals for housing affordability for all residents across the county to increase the percentage of our residents that have access to housing that they can afford at 30% of their income. We are also looking at our public safety systems. And I want to read the goal because we actually have this one nailed down. By 2025, new and existing funding for the county's courthouse, jail, and law enforcement operations will be identified from federal, state, local, and regional funding sources. So we as a commission see great opportunity to partner with law enforcement and also with the homeless services measure coming on board, and all the ways that we can integrate what we need to do to make sure that we are providing across our system the public safety that our community has so articulately stated that they want. And with that, just a couple other things that I know you're probably aware of. We are busy implementing the Metro Housing Bond, which is putting $116 million into our county in the metro urban growth boundary that is well underway with some pretty exciting developments. Really happy to talk with anyone offline about that. And with that, I will pass it on to Commissioner Shull.
Oh, you're on mute, Mark.
Mark, unmute yourself. Thank you.
Good afternoon, North Clackamas County Chamber of Commerce. Another strategic priority of the board is to build public trust through good government. We will have two sought-after results for this strategic priority. They currently are, by 2022, the county's budget will be structurally sound, sustainable, and 100% tied to results. By 2024, county policies and decisions, service delivery, and board deliberations will be equitable, inclusive, and transparent. Both of these are obviously very important, but I like to emphasize the importance of the county budget and its process. While budget activities continue at the county year-round, the period of heightened budget activity is every year in late May and early June, starting right after Memorial Day. That's the week when the Clackamas County Budget Committee, made up of 5 commissioners and 5 members of the public, listen to the county staff presentations, hear from the members of the public, and send a recommended budget to the Board of County Commissioners. The public input we receive from residents, stakeholders, and businesses is critical for us to determine what services we should invest in. And on behalf of this board, I'd like to invite everyone listening to get involved with our budget process in late May and early June. And even before that, give us a call, an email. Let's get together for coffee and a talk anytime. And with that, I'll turn it over to Commissioner Martha Schrader.
Well, thank you, everyone. I'm assuming I'm not on mute at this point. It's wonderful to be here, Laura, and all the rest of the folks we've worked with for many years. And I have the honor today of talking about our final strategic priority, which is near and dear to my heart. And that is honoring, utilizing, promoting, and investing in our natural resources. And I'm here to tell you that we are continuing to lead the way in forest management, actually exceeding state guidelines. And as you know, how we manage our forest here in this county are extremely important because it is one of the revenue streams that helps maintain and keeps our county parks doing quite well. The other piece of this, though, that I really wanted to mention is that one of our goals is by 2026, we want to see a 10% increase in food production and food production acres from agricultural land in Clackamas County. So how are we going to do that? Well, for one thing, we have a very close relationship, and I go to the board meetings. I'm sitting on the board, and I'm hopeful that Chair Smith will join me there, that it is the North Willamette Research and Extension Center. That is our agricultural anchor here in the Valley, and they are the premier group that actually does all the research on things such as crop management, integrated pest management, how to increase yield, and also together with our Department of Agriculture, works with our farmers to get our exports, actually primarily to China in many ways, between filberts and berries and things of that sort, out on the market. Not just locally as well with our food system, but there's an international traded sector component as well. So we're going to continue to work with them because 11% of the employment out here in the metro area is agriculturally significant. And we as Clackamas County are a key part of that. The other piece I want to mention is something that's coming up. It's a conference that Clackamas County has been working on with Water and Environment Services, together with the Clackamas River Basin Council. And I'm here to let folks know that on March 9th, there's going to be a year-long seminar called Journey Down the Clackamas. And this is going to be everything we need to know about the Clackamas watershed. And basically, the conference schedule is starting on March 9th, and you need to go to clackamasriver.org. It will talk about the biology of the Clackamas. It'll talk about the geography of the Clackamas. It will talk about the entirety of the watershed, our fish, and everything that has to do with it. It's a very exciting conference. And I want to thank Water and Environment Services for providing their expertise on this important year-long journey down the Clackamas. Finally, I'm going to add one more thing, and I hope you don't mind. It's a little bit of my own, something I've been interested in years. I think that many of you know I started out as an entomologist, and I am proud to announce that I will be working with the Extension Service, pulling together the Oregon Bee Atlas this year, because pollinators are integral to the food supply and the natural environment around us. Basically, folks, no pollinators, no bees, no crops, no food. And that's going to be a wonderful initiative, and you can look that up on Oregon Extension. Once again, the Oregon Bee Project, and it has been really going on since 2017. And I'm just delighted I can finally use my entomology degree in a way that is helping our agriculture. Thank you.
And thank you so much, all of you. Thank you for reciting your strategic goals. And we look forward to helping you to create that vibrant region, since that is our mission statement as well. So thank you for partnering with us in so many ways. So we're going to start the Q&A portion of the forum right now. Again, if anybody has questions, please type them into the Q&A or the chat room. Make sure if they're for a specific commissioner, you put their name at the front of the question. And I see people are asking us to post the any of the links to websites that were mentioned. So the clackamasriver.org one, we'll make sure that we get that in there. So I'll start with a couple questions that were submitted in advance to kickstart us. So question number one, Clackamas has experienced 3 disasters in the last 12 months. Imagine that. What lessons have you learned, and how might those lessons turn into actions by this board?
That's a good question, Laura, and I'm going to kick it off. Emergency disaster preparedness is one of the top priorities that I will be working on in getting the county prepared for. I hope it doesn't happen in another disaster, whether it be a natural disaster, whether it be a health-related disaster, as we've been seeing. I was one of those people who were evacuated from the forest fires. And I know what that's like to experience the terror of leaving your home, not knowing if the raging wildfire is just over the hill, ready to consume your home, or not knowing whether I'd be able to come back. I was really lucky. I was returned to my home. Back when I was previous commissioner, I received a FEMA training from Emergency Management Institute on a very basic level. And I'm continuing in that training now. In fact, I start my first training to be certified FEMA natural disaster expert is what I'm doing. I do that in my spare time. I don't do that on county time. I also am asking this board to set aside money to implement protocols. One of the biggest issues that we learned in the wildfire evacuations is a call out system, an emergency management call to people. In the past, you might have had an app come up on your phone, but most of the people who in South Clackamas County in the remote areas did not have that available to them. And Martha Schrader and I went out and we toured just about a week after these wildfires where there was still smoldering, and you could see the fresh smoke coming out of the ground, and you could smell the fires. And we talked to a lot of people out there, and this is what they told us. And an evacuation notification system, a call system, and the state needs to step up and help us do that. Secondly, our evacuation routes for that particular fire. And then what came up to me is so many people in the southern areas stepped up with their own equipment and their own willpower and their own tractors and picks and axe, and stayed behind to fight the fires to save their own homes. And what I want to do is I created a committee for the commissioners. It's called the Emergency Management Coalition Groups. All commissioners, I think, want to serve on that. We're going to be doing outreach to any person in the county. I foresee dividing up our county of volunteers so we can help ourselves. And what we noticed in the ice storm, and people should realize that your government may not always be there for you. You need to be self-sustaining individuals. I asked our individuals, people, hey, go check on your neighbors when we looked like we're going to be without power for a very long time. We called in the National Guard to do wellness checks along with the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office and our SARS people. But that's government. I'd like to partner with businesses. I'd like to partner with people who want to serve. I hope we get people who want to do that. We will be going out and implementing these programs. I wanted to do that before our third ice storm in situation. Another area that is so important to people is to keep their electricity on. I am working with PGE on their danger trees hanging over power lines, and for the removal of those. I think in Oregon, we have established a love affair with our trees, and many, many people are reluctant to cut them down, and that's what needs to happen in these areas. We had 4 people die. So if I have a choice between cutting down a tree or saving lives because people were without heat and electricity, I think my choice is fairly simple. We will be clearing the right-of-way, expanding the right-of-way to the areas that are hardest hit by that. And I know our other commissioners have comments that they want to make, so thank you for the question, Laura.
Anybody else?
Paul?
Yeah, I'm just going to jump in. I won't repeat much. I do agree that the evacuation routes on the transportation side was evident, most especially during the forest fires, and to some degree also in the ice storms because of roads being blocked by fallen trees. But the common denominator between all 3 of these events has actually been communication. We have relied upon communication in the essence I mentioned earlier about broadband and areas that don't have that. During the forest fires, the issue there was also communication amongst ourselves. People lost cell service. We lost, when you lose power, you also lose your ability to connect to at least the news, information on TV. And during the ice storm, frankly, cell service was terrible. I mean, I couldn't even call out for about 2 days. So just part of our system. You couldn't call, didn't have power to run your TV, didn't know what was happening. We were lost. We really didn't have any means. And I think we need to really have perhaps a more of a radio backbone where we have some kind of a radio channel where people can have a battery operated radio, at least to learn if there is an evacuation being called, that we've got a means to do that. So I think that's probably the biggest thing is communication. We got to figure out a better way or a better backbone in the event of these kinds of emergencies. And I'll conclude my comments there. Thank you.
Okay. Can I make a comment?
Of course.
Quickly, I think that one of the things we need to also address is how COVID has impacted us. Who would have thought that at the beginning of 2020, by March of that year, that we would be in a global pandemic, and we have been responding to that for over a year. So it's been pandemic, wildfire, ice storm. I hope there isn't an asteroid coming our way anytime soon, because I don't know how much more, but our folks that have been here working on all of this have been absolutely phenomenal. So we had our first case of COVID on February 28th. And since then in Clackamas County, we've had over 13,000 positive cases and 175 deaths as of Monday, March 1st. And I know that it's been frustrating, particularly for our business community, because I've talked to Laura, I've talked to a number of our businesses about, kind of the seesaw, we're open, we're not open. It's really kind of been a hardship on our businesses. And I do know that, Laura, that we've done a lot with our business community to get CARES Act just dollars to our businesses to help them remain open and help them over those humps. So I know that we continue to do that, but the good news right now is we're now at moderate risk. And that means that as of the end of February, a lot of the restrictions, well, some of the restrictions where businesses were able to open with fewer restrictions. I believe indoor dining, operation of recreation facilities such as gyms, indoor entertainment, they can operate with 50% occupancy or 100 people, whichever is less. I know that isn't perfect. It's not what we want. But the vaccine is rolling out, even though I will say I do think the vaccination program's been pretty rough and tumble, but things seem to be picking up there. And I'm just going to encourage people, keep doing what you're doing, washing your hands, wearing your mask, social distancing. And if you're sick, please stay at home. I think we're almost over this. And I would say that as far as I know now, individuals 65 and over are now eligible for the vaccine. So you can call the Oregon Health Authority, but I've also heard that people are having good luck with Walmart and Safeway and some of the pharmacy systems that have now had access to vaccines. Great.
Thank you.
Laura, if I
Yep.
could just add one piece along the lines of learning from these multiple disasters. One thing that we do is an after action planning process. And if there are folks out there that have suggestions of things that worked well, things that didn't work through any one of these multiple crises, let us know. We're keeping a running list and we want to maintain what worked well in future emergencies, but we also are in a constant improvement planning process.
Thank you all for your input. So let's dovetail into something when we're talking about the ice storm. And we're going to ask COVID questions too here real quick, but the ice storm, when we look at the climate action plan and the carbon reduction, emission reduction plans that are out there to reduce carbon by 2050, nor removing natural gas from the equation has been recommended. So a lot of the businesses have concerns over that consideration or possibility, right? There's an actual threat. When you look at 75% of the Oregonians use natural gas to heat their homes, businesses who require it to be able to run their manufacturing, because you can't, electric doesn't, supposedly electric doesn't get the generators hot enough, like in a steel mill process, right? So the question for you guys, knowing that you have an climate action plan yourselves, do you think it's really reasonable and feasible to consider the removal of natural gas as an actual resource, especially given the power outages that we've had during these ice storms, when natural gas was all that many people had to stay warm and feed themselves with? Go.
Commissioner Schultz.
Yes. In my opinion, and the natural gas is one of our most efficient, clean energy sources. And without it, if we were to take it away at this time or in the next 20 years, without something to replace it, would be a very negative impact on our economy, both business and at home. So I do not advocate removing natural gas from the equation. What I rely on and what has proven in our society for decades is that if we let business innovate, we'll see equipment that burns natural gas become more and more efficient. So I am an advocate of the natural gas infrastructure, and keeping it as an integral part of our economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Tootie?
Quick answer. I do not advocate removing natural gas from the carbon plan. Thank you.
Martha?
Laura, I'll go ahead and jump in.
Okay.
So just to make sure we are all on the same page, the Board of County Commissioners, one of our strategic goals is to develop a climate action plan. So we are in the process right now of the community engagement, which is deciding what will Clackamas County's climate action plan look like. And if anyone has an interest in this, please, please, please get engaged. I was part of the first meeting where we went through the metrics, and there's some fascinating science behind this and lots of options of different pathways through. We all know that we want clean air, clean water, a clean environment. We also know that we want to minimize the effects of climate change. How we do it and how Clackamas County does it, those strategies have not been decided in Clackamas County. So more news to come on that. And this is a commercial to please, please, please engage if you are interested in this.
Thank you, Commissioner Fisher. Martha, and then Paul, please.
I really don't see how we can eliminate natural gas use. It's clean energy, it's efficient. So I will just start out saying that. To build a little bit on what Commissioner Fisher said, it's not a done deal yet. Nothing's written in stone, and there are two groups that we're putting together. There's a community advisory task force that is supposed to make recommendations to the board, and there is also a youth advisory task force, which also we're trying to get insights. So my strong suggestion to this chamber is to stay on top of that and make sure that members of your chamber, as well as youth that you want to train in leadership, have access to getting on these advisory pieces. I don't think that everything that is written in, or what's out there yet is all written in stone. And I, for one, do agree that I don't see, having lost power and not having not having anything else. There are times when, yeah, you can't rule out any energy right source at this point in time, in my opinion. So, thanks.
Yeah, I'll just jump in and say that, we need to reconcile our needs between trying to meet our climate goals and also trying to really meet our energy needs. In all practicality, if we thought about it during the ice storm, for example, the most recent one in our memories is if we didn't have fuel to power the chainsaws to remove the trees that are blocking the roads and get off the power lines, if we didn't have fuel to power the vehicles, which actually was a somewhat of a near crisis for us, getting fuel for our generators and so forth. So I think to some degree, fossil fuels to some degree is going to be part of our future, but we need to really recognize this is a global problem. The solution needs to be global. If Oregon did everything right, we're not going to make that much of a dent in the real climate problem, which is global. We need to have the entire planet on board, frankly, and that's a big ask. We can be part of that. We can be part of the solution and we can help lead the way, but we need to be practical. We cannot afford to put ourselves in a position where we are not competitive and we are compromising health and safety and the welfare of our communities as well. So we got to strike a balance somehow.
Thank you, Paul. So a collaborative and strategic approach is what we all need to come to the conclusion. Thank you all. So a couple questions that have come in. So what are your current plans for the new courthouse? Who wants to take that one?
Well, I should probably jump in since I am been the past and current lobbyist with the legislature on this one. So we, as many of you know, the legislature has granted Clackamas County half of the funding for our courthouse. And the reason why the state is so invested in these courthouses around the state is that many of them are not safe and they need to be replaced. And the state recognizes its role in helping to secure those safe and effective parts of our access to justice system. So in Clackamas County, back in the 60s, actually, it was when the Red Soils campus was envisioned, having the courthouse up on the Red Soils campus was a priority. The master planning in Clackamas County puts the courthouse up on the Red Soils campus. A lot of the infrastructure to do that is in place. And that is what we have been moving forward with. The legislature, it appears in my conversations, is continuing to be committed to their investment of half of the cost. Now for us in Clackamas County, we as a board recognize, the previous board, and I believe this board, I'm not quite sure because we haven't actually taken a vote on it, but we will in the future, but recognize that asking our voters for an additional cost for the courthouse isn't something that our voters are going to be too excited about. So we worked real hard with staff to look at what's called a private partnership model, which would allow us to enter into a funding mechanism which builds the courthouse and then we lease it back until such time in the future that we own it. That would allow us to fund this courthouse with existing resources, especially as we retire debt of current buildings that we have. So that is the funding mechanism. Our new commissioners have some ideas and our staff is looking at other possibilities, such as, is it feasible? Is it possible to convert one of our existing buildings to the courthouse instead of building a courthouse? Our staff is looking at that. We want to really make sure that we are doing our due diligence with all the options on the table and we continue the conversation. And I'm not sure if there's anything else any other commissioner would like to add. I could go on.
My hand is up, Sonia. My hand is up.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
There you go.
Well, anybody who's been following me has known for over a year, I've been very vocal on the plans for a new courthouse, recognizing the fact that the voters would not be happy to pay a huge debt. And the preliminary, just a history of preliminary numbers came in quite high of about 230 million, of which the state would pay half. But the rub was the county had to have matching funds of that. Whereas Commissioner Fisher has mentioned the private-public partnership, I think is a very good way to go. I like the concept because they will also take over the maintenance in the future. and that alleviates us of the maintenance, we still have to make the payments. And coming from the business sector and a development mind, I'm thinking, okay, how do we make those payments when our personnel costs are escalating? We're making cost saving measures at the county. Our revenues are probably flat, although property tax payments came in during COVID. Thank you very much, everybody, for doing that. And so I started putting my thinking hat on, and I said, you know, let's use an existing building. And back then I just threw out some ideas. You know, Sears building at Town Center was out. Let's lease that instead. Well, as our workplace paradigm has shifted to too many people at home, we are not using a lot of the county offices that have been paid for by taxpayers and continually paid in your wonderful, generous donations of your tax dollars. So I think as we move forward, I'm going to encourage our board to look at our other building on the Red Soils campus. It will need to be remodeled, but remember this, that is our 50% match sitting right over there across the parking lot. That is not a situation where we have to borrow money for. And when I tend to look at our budget priorities and our funding of all public safety needs, to me, that's easy because across out my back door window here is our jail. One of our strategic plans is a new jail to figure out how we're going to fund that. We also have the sheriff's department. And so all of those needs, so balancing out all those needs, I'm looking at a more cost efficient way using our existing resources to pay for something. I am mindful that it's going to be a lift. I'm mindful of the fact that we'll probably remodel that building, may have to add some space to it, but I think we can get there. You know, I've done this before. I've done a lot of projects. I think we can get there. I think our commissioners will be happy because it will be on the Red Soils campus place. I know our judges will be happy, and I would submit that remodeling that building, we will get there faster than if we had to break ground and start from scratch on a brand new one. So that's a conversation that we will have going forward. I floated this idea before, but the Board of Commissioners has not had an opportunity to sit down and roll up our sleeves and make a collective decision, which we all will be doing. And if anybody out there in the chamber has any ideas how we can get there with this, I would sure like to hear from you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Oh, couple questions waiting in the wings. ODOT has said that I-205 bottleneck projects will be almost shovel ready at the end of this year. How is the county working with ODOT, the state and federal delegation to ensure this project receives funding and moves forward?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one. So we have been engaged in about every table that there is with regards to transportation, and we are giving our advice or opinions. You know, ODOT is in the driver's seat on the 205 tolling, the interstate tolling, and the way it's been growing. And we just had a little bit of a presentation at the government affairs group on Monday for the chamber here from ODOT. So I know they're still sorting it out, frankly. There's a study underway called NEPA, and it's going to take a few years to get the results from that. But they are looking at bonding forward on the concept of tolling as the revenue stream. But they'll need to make commitments. The legislature's in session. We have suggested locally with some of our key city officials that are nearby on the 205 project, including Metro Councilor. You know, we've been advocating for maybe a penny or two per gallon on the gas tax would get this project started and not bear the brunt or have our citizens and businesses bear the brunt of tolling our system. And at the same time, Metro is looking at tolling our system, and that would just have impacts, especially to people that are, you know, barely are living on the edge, can probably not afford an extra cost of transportation. And that concerns me. You know, those are people, whether they're people of color, low income folks, elderly, people on fixed incomes. This is something that's going to be a major shift in how we look at transportation, how transportation is funded. We have a letter, just so you know, we have a long-standing letter that has been in opposition to tolling. So I want to make that perfectly clear. We have not changed that position. And we'll see what happens in the next few months. But we are working, I'm working almost every day on this very topic of how we fund transportation, and 205 is one of the major projects we're working on. That's what I have. Thank you.
Just quickly, Commissioner Savas and I have met with our congressional delegation all last week. We used to fly into Washington, D.C. with our Summit Strategies, our D.C. lobby folks that work for us. And we've had conversations. I-205 is one of the few, if not the only, shovel-ready project in Oregon. The Biden administration, from what we understand, wants to pass a gazillion trillion-dollar infrastructure project in America. We talked with the Assistant Secretary for the U.S. DOT, and they want to fund shovel-ready projects as much as they can, he said, within the first 6 months. And I was pretty amazed by that projection. However, it needs to pass the United States Congress. And so if that happens, we have a good chance in getting a federal funding for I-205, which is badly needed. As Commissioner Savas said, and I support him in that, we do not support tolling. It is extremely inequitable, and it affects Clackamas County residents, low-income people, the worst. And most people don't like it either. So we will continue in our efforts not to provide tolling for our folks. And thanks a lot.
Thank you all. Thank you. So another question that's been posed by our audience goes to equity. What specific policies will you promote to ensure that all voices of all members of our communities, including marginalized and minority groups, are solicited, heard, and respected in county decisions? And I think we've heard from the majority already that it's people need to step forward to be part of the conversation. If people feel that they're being marginalized, I believe that the floor is always open, the door's always open, the phones are always live. So is there anything unique in a way that people can submit any additional communications? Martha, I'll start with you.
Yeah, we have a really robust community equity and diversity framework in this county. Martine is doing a fabulous job with the folks that she is working with. And it is a core value of this entity of our county to make sure that everyone is welcome here in the county. We have a number of demographics. We have a very large Asian American community in the Happy Valley area. We have an African American community. We have a very large Hispanic community out in our rural areas. And we also have what I guess the term is adjacent white communities, such as our Russian folks that are there. And we have really done incredible outreach to all of those communities, particularly in a time of COVID, to make sure that they have access to what they need, not only for the vaccine, but also during the wildfires and also during the ice storm. So I think that's a core piece that's going to continue in this county. I know that I won't let it rest. It's kind of part of who I am. And I believe that the rest of the commissioners are very supportive of that work. So we're doing it and we're not going to stop doing it.
Thank you. A voice for all, and we like to hear. Sonia, go ahead.
Yeah, another piece that we're doing is active outreach. So recognizing that some communities may not feel safe coming forward to the government to provide input, we have engaged with other organizations like the Coalition of Communities of Color, which has a report that I'm sure our board is going. I saw a draft of the report. I was quite impressed with it, but it scanned our entire county to look at issues of equity and inclusion. Also with the homeless services measure and other activities, Unite Oregon has been a community-based organization which has done some incredible outreach with communities of color to get input. The piece that I am very excited about. And I didn't realize that we were actually so far along this road until I was presenting at a MACG, which is the Metropolitan for Common Good. It's a group of advocates around the region, a lot of faith-based folks. And the question came up of how are we going to get the vaccine to marginalized communities, and really leaning in with our staff and learning of the incredible expansion that we're doing with community-based organizations and getting them on board to assist us in reaching communities during these crises it will yield benefits well into the future.
Thank you.
And Laura,
Paul-
just
Oh,
just-
sorry, I'm gonna get to Paul too, because he's had his hand up the whole time, but go ahead, Paul, then Martha, if you don't
Yeah,
mind.
I just want to just add, we took with the leadership of our administrator, Gary Schmidt, we took a initiative forward in expanding our equity, diversity, and inclusion office. And someone mentioned Martine, who is the head of that department. So we are going to make sure that that is part of well, it already is part of our core values, but make sure it's embedded in virtually everything that we do. You heard us mention today broadband, which obviously the people who don't have it often are the people that are either of low income or people of color and so forth. So communication, education, all those important things, to telehealth, everything that it touches everyone. Transportation, you heard me mention I-205 and the impacts of tolling. So in the transportation industry, when I say industry, the government in particular, or the governments, we're making that a key component of virtually everything we do. Same goes for housing. Commissioner Fisher mentioned that. That's a big factor. Actually, that's one of the major drivers. COVID, we heard COVID. So in almost everything we do, all the key issues that we've been working for and working on in the last year, that's been a big part of what we're doing. And I certainly appreciate it and value it. And I know our community members do. And it will be, when we start to open up, hopefully we'll see a lot more people coming around the table and being part of that are people of color, low income, minority, that we got that mixture and that diversity. And hopefully our advisory boards and commissions will have a greater focus on making sure that when openings come available, that maybe the waiting or the applications can be more favored to bring in more people for representing that particular population.
Thank you, Paul. Martha, and then we'll have to ask a final wrap-up question.
thank you for that. I just wanted to give some specific examples. For example, women, infants, and children here in the county is offering evidently vaccines, and everything that we offer is in multiple languages. And I believe there's been outreach to the Hispanic community with that. During the ice storm, our emergency services folks put up areas, resource areas, and PGE helped out. So kudos to PGE for this help, supplying water, food, flashlights, coloring books for kids, information on social services. And I volunteered in Canby for a day, and was a large Hispanic presence there, large Latinx population coming in and out. And actually one of the larger churches there is Latinx in Canby, and they were highly active and highly involved with our county and the Red Cross, making sure that people had the supplies they needed, maybe who really needed it, to weather the ice storm. So those are some specific examples of how what we do internally translates to action externally to the rest of our community.
Thank you. Thank you. And since we're coming on to the hour, I want to go ahead and ask a closing question, because you each will have up to 2 minutes to make your closing remarks. So as we preclude this conversation today, the question is asked, how are you going to continue working together in a collaborative and cohesive way to ensure that you are serving the public, the business community of Clackamas County? So we'll start this dialogue with Chair Smith, please.
I had to unmute myself. I think you'll find this board currently works well together. And that's certainly my goal. Commissioners always have an opportunity to voice their opinion and participate in whatever they want to, regardless of our certain assignments, which those had to be done regardless of their interests. Always have that opportunity. We are all aware of what our business community offers, and we want to enhance that. We want to keep them vibrant as much as we can. We have also continue with the dialogue of our citizens who call in or email every week. That communication has not been limited and whatsoever. It continues in a robust way. But keeping in mind that Clackamas County's government structure is that we are a statutory county, which means we are governed by Oregon revised statutes. And Oregon revised statute says we are nonpartisan in nature. And I say that every week because it's very important. It's very important to not to take sides on one side or the other in a political nature. And I'm very driven, if that's the only thing that I accomplish in my 4-year tenure, is that we remain nonpartisan and that all points of view are honored and respected and able to be spoken. And I will continue in that. As we look at our policies that they go forward, we're trying to serve as many people as we can with what is our charge to serve. For instance, there was a huge outcry in K-12 education. Commissioners, why aren't you doing something? Well, we all have spoken out individually. Yes, open our schools. But that is not what our charge is according to Oregon revised statutes, because Clackamas County is a statutory county. I give this civics lesson at least once a day because I think it's important that people understand how their local government works, at least in Clackamas County. You have always can call us, you can email the BCC, you can email us privately. I try to answer as many calls. I get private emails and I'm reaching out to people. Frankly, I've been inundated. And today I had 2 appointments in my office from emails that were sent to me in December. That is how far behind I am. Since January 4th, I have been in the office daily, working the business of Clackamas County. I have been seeing appointments in my office. Since then, with the exception of the ice storm, I wasn't able to make it. I encourage all commissioners to do the same. We're starting to come back now that we have down to moderate. People feel more secure in that. And it's good for commissioners. It's good for us as a governing body of 5 to engage in each other, feed off each other's energy, and be able to walk across the hall and say, hey, what do you think about this? Because it's good for me because I'm always given a point of view that maybe I had not previously considered. So that's good for me. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Chair Smith, so much. Commissioner Savas, we'll go to you next.
Yeah, well, when I reflect on my 24 years now of public service and 20 of that in elected capacities, I've seen the value and experienced the value of teamwork, and that's incredibly important. And our retreats, had a retreat virtually in every one of those elected positions I've had in the past, have been very valuable in the sense that, you have the opportunity to focus, you have the opportunity to maybe work out issues amongst your colleagues and continue that and identify, the guiding star, where are we headed, where are we going? And I think it's important, and I would say that in the first 10 years, I was, enlightened quite a bit and pleased that in those capacities, we were able to accomplish that. It was fantastic. We did a lot, accomplished a lot, saved the taxpayers millions of dollars in doing so, and provided fantastic service. But however, in the last 10 years, teamwork it's hard to accomplish. It seems to be it's more politically loaded, if you will. And it is difficult to sometimes, I guess, for others to keep the focus when we have so many things going on. I often say, sometimes we agree on what we want to get done. We can't maybe perhaps agree or understand on how we get there to get that particular project or goal accomplished. So, you, in this business, I think frankly, in order to be effective, you have to work unselfishly. You have to work for your constituencies. And I put a tremendous amount of weight on teamwork and being dedicated to that. And I think if we can focus on that and just ask ourselves, what is it we're working on today? Making sure we're working hard. I find the value, for example, of hard work. I've been a workaholic my entire life. And somehow I'm now getting hooked into these Zoom meetings because I'm realizing I can pick up 1 to 2.5 hours of productivity a day for the fact that I'm not traveling, for the fact that, I just get more done. Now, some things you can't always do, but,
Right.
When we look at remote working and all these other opportunities, I think, again, we got to find a way to work together and connect with our communities, because they are part of it. So I look forward to our continued work together. We're a brand new commission in the sense that we have 2 new colleagues. And again, if we can focus on the work that we have before us and what's in the best interest of our constituents, we'll be better for it. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas. Commissioner Fisher, we'll go to you next.
Thank you, Laura. So I think we create collaboration and cohesiveness by all of us recognizing that there are people on the other end of every decision that we make and keeping that focus. And I could give multiple examples of how every commissioner has demonstrated that. The really remarkable opportunity that we have is that the different perspectives of what our constituents need help us to create the best policy possible for our community. The other piece that we have here, and we often don't, you see us up here and we're talking about the policies of the county and where we want to go, but we have a huge gift of effectiveness and efficiency with our county administrator, Gary Schmidt, and the staff that work for Clackamas County. We have some of the best and brightest, just phenomenal. That's all I have to say is phenomenal, heartfelt, dedicated public servants that work for Clackamas County. So how do we create cohesiveness and collaboration? We look towards the future with the eye towards taking care of all of our residents and doing that with the lens of equity and care and compassion and through all our various perspectives. And also the piece that I'm very committed to is not shying away from the difficult conversations. So we don't gain any strength by not addressing what's challenging. And if there's anything that these last 3 emergencies has taught us, is that there are tremendous challenges. There's a lot of suffering. There's a lot of pain. There is so much angst out there in our community, and we have to lean into it. We have to address the concerns of our community with transparency, with heartfelt compassion, and with analytical prowess. And I think this commission, I have seen it in the past, and I believe it will occur in the future. We can work together to do that.
Thank you. Very well put, Commissioner Fisher. And if we stay with the roll, we're going to go to Commissioner Scholl next, and Martha will wrap it up for us.
Yes, thank you, Laura. We live in a time in our nation of incredible partisan vitriol, and it can affect anybody at any level of government. It's something we need to guard against. And as long as we respect each other as individuals, be it members of the board or members of the staff, members of business, or those 430,000 people across the county, that's what's important. And I can tell you in my 2 months of being on the board, I've been impressed with the ability of the board to work and respect the background and knowledge of the staff, to consider their input on decision-making. We have made it an effort to emphasize the importance of collaborating with the people across the county on decision-making. And I'm sure that that's going to continue to improve. I look forward to working with essentially everybody in the county and considering their input. So again, thank you very much, Laura, for the opportunity to talk today.
Thank you, Mark. Martha.
Well, thanks for giving me the opportunity to do the wrap up here, Laura. When I think about the job that we have to do here at the county, the word that comes to mind for me is stability, because we do live in an unstable world right now. Again, just with 3 disasters in less than a year is an indicator of how things can rock our world and essentially, destroy our equilibrium. And I think in order to be effective as a commission, in order to be do the due diligence we need to do to work with and take care of our constituents and the people we care about, we kind of always have to focus on that eye on the prize and not get distracted. Sometimes I think by externalities that may upset the equilibrium. Our job is to bring it back to the center, to steady the ship and to move forward. And what is steadiness and what is stability really based on? Well, loyalty, trust, having people feel safe, essentially being consistent in how we make decisions. And that's hard because we have 5 different personalities here and 5 different folks who have different life experiences. And I think the magic of it is, and I like using the word magic because I think that's what it is, that when we can finally coalesce around a set of goals that we can all agree on, even when we disagree on maybe the process, we're still moving forward. We're still focusing on the future. And as I said, we have to be nimble enough, and we have been as a county, to deal with all of those factors that kind of want to tip us this way and tip us that way. But in the end, that is one of our most important jobs. And frankly, it's not just important to our external constituency. I would add here that consistency in direction, consistency in communication, creating safe places for people, and including and barriers to equality, and engaging in listening opportunities with everyone. That's really what's going to keep us moving forward. And that, I hope, having been here, I feel like I'm getting kind of long in the tooth actually here in the county. I think that's one of the big lessons I've learned, is stability externally and internally for our staff. So they remain healthy, they remain happy, they feel welcomed, and our staff and the folks we work with here internally as well feel like they're in a safe environment. So stable and focused, those are the 2 words I'm just going to write on my whiteboard here.
Perfect. Thank you all. What a fantastic conversation today. And I wish we actually had more time. Perhaps next time we schedule 2 hours, huh? I don't think that even is enough time to be able to handle and answer all the questions, right? There was a question, but we'll forward this later. There was on eviction moratoriums, right? But we know that that is also on the forefront of some goals and objectives you guys have. So I'm not going to, we already know where you're working on that. We know that that is an urgent and very immediately pressing concern that we all have. So I know you guys are on it. We don't have to ask that question. We're out of time. So I want to thank you all so much for being with us today. Thank you so much for being such a collaborative partner of the chambers, all of the chambers throughout Clackamas County. We all thank you. And just thanks again to our event sponsors, Northwest Natural Gas, Portland General Electric, Kaiser Permanente, and the Oregon City Chamber of Commerce. Just be aware, on March 30th, we are hosting our economic forum with John Mitchell, one of our favorite economists. And then the State of the Cities Forum, we're also holding that this year, and that's going to be on April 8th. So a lot of activities coming up. We look forward to being at the table during the discussions for the Climate Action Plan. We look forward to continued work with your Economic Development Commission team, because they are fantastic. They're doing a great job, as are all of your committees and teams. So we appreciate you all. So with that said, we're going to adjourn this call for the day. Thank you all. We'll talk to you soon.